Chilean President Sebastian Pinera says he will shake up his cabinet to quell a week of mass protests against inequality that have rocked his country. His announcement follows Friday's peaceful rally, which saw up to 1 million Chileans flood the streets calling for reforms to the country's social and economic model. Pinera did not announce the specifics of the reshuffle, nor did he say when he would announce them. Protests in Chile began over a hike in subway fares more than a week ago and escalated into riots that have killed at least 17 people. For more on this, journalist John Bartlett joins us now from Santiago. Hi, John. It's good to see you. We've seen some stunning pictures throughout the past couple of days. Latin American media saying Friday's 1 million protest march, some are saying 1.2 million, was the biggest in Chile's history. But now, with a state of emergency in place and the military out in the streets, we understand there were banners saying, "We are not at war." Are protesters being repressed?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that it's certainly not a recent thing that those banners have started to come out. I think those have been there all along. I think that it was a president actually that came out last Sunday evening, so almost a week ago now, when these protests were really kind of hotting up last weekend. And he said that Chile was at war with a powerful enemy, I think he said, or a violent enemy. That was clumsy, to say the least, I think. I think that really sparked a backlash from the international community, which is very important to this administration, the perception abroad. But also here within Chile, I think a lot of the signs that you've been seeing all week have said, we're not at war, and, kind of poking fun at the president for having said that. Although, of course, it's a very serious matter, what he's been saying.
So Chile's president has asked his entire cabinet to resign. Would this at all diffuse the demonstrations, you think?
It's difficult to say at the moment. I think, as you mentioned, you alluded to in the introduction, nobody knows who's going to go and who's going to stay. I think what he's done so far is he's asked all of his ministers to make their positions available. So I think what's going to happen is that you'll see some of the key positions replaced. I think the Interior Minister, Andres Chadwick, who's the president's cousin and has, many say, kind of significant influence on the government here and the decision-making of the president's office. He's a prime candidate to be replaced. Whether that'll happen or not is another matter. He survived kind of scandals in the past in terms of interior home affairs here in Chile. There's also the Environment Minister, I think, was one of the ones that was being looked at for replacement, and the Transport Minister as well, who's obviously had a rough ride recently with the metro fare protests, and then kind of widespread chaos, and even the truckers' strike as well, which managed to close quite a few of the main highways into Santiago.
John, I want to ask you about what rights groups are saying. They've warned about dictator-like practices. The National Institute of Human Rights says thousands have been stripped of their rights, including hundreds of minors, and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. They expressed concern about complaints of sexual violence, forced undressing, and torture. How is the government responding to those claims?
Yes, I think this is interesting. I think this is going to be the next big development in the story here in Chile, next kind of big news kind of outbreak. On Monday, the UN's High Commissioner on Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, who's the ex-president of Chile, who was the president before Pinera, she's sending a delegation on the invitation of the government to come and have a look at what's going on and investigate the various crimes. I think that it's important to say that what's happened so far, the government to start with wasn't really acknowledging what was happening. They were releasing figures that were disputed as to the number of deaths, number of injured. And those are starting to kind of consolidate themselves now, and we're starting to really see what the truth of the matter is. But the government did invite both Human Rights Watch, America's director, is going to come here to have a look at the same time as the UN delegation. So I think it's taking this very seriously, and they promise full transparency with regard to human rights. So I think that's a very positive step. Although, as you mentioned there, I think there are lots of very, very worrying reports as to kind of forced stripping and sexual violence against women as well. There have been some torture allegations as well, and this practice that was rife under the dictatorship as well between 1973 and 1990 of sort of crucifixion, where people are hung by handcuffs from structures. So these are all allegations at the moment. It's very hard to verify, and it's quite hard to report on and say what's definitely been happening and what hasn't. But the allegations are terrifying.
Well, this is an important story to keep following. John, thanks for that. We really appreciate you following this story for us. That's John Bartlett in Santiago, Chile.